Hi, this is Nathan Tintle. In this Learning Goal video, we're going to talk about how to approximate a 95% confidence interval for a mean using the 2SD method. We'll use the used car prices data set to talk about this learning goal. Remember that a confidence interval can be written as the statistic plus or minus a number called the multiplier times the standard deviation of a statistic. The 2SD method says that a rough 95% confidence interval, we use a multiplier of 2, and in this case, if we want to find that confidence interval on the mean, we use the sample mean as our statistic and the standard deviation of the sample means as our standard error. The key idea here is that there will be less variability between different sample means than there is between cars. That is, that the standard deviation of the X bars, the standard error, will be less than the standard deviation of car prices, which we denote with S. You can see this in the following formula, which shows you the prediction of what the standard deviation is for the sample means. The predicted value of the standard deviation of the sample means is S over the square root of n. We can use this to find an approximate 95% confidence interval. Essentially, plug into this formula. Your X bar, that's the average car prices in your data set, that's 13,292. Add and subtract to that your margin of error, that's 2 times the standard deviation, $4,535, divided by the square root of 102, that's your sample size, and what you're left with is an approximate 95% confidence interval. This tells us that we're 95% sure that the true average asking price of Honda Civics on the internet in July 2006 is between $12,934 and $14,190. This confidence interval and the related interpretation makes 2 big assumptions. First, it assumes that the sample is representative. Second, this approximate confidence interval is valid and appropriate as long as the null distribution of sample means is reasonably symmetric, which we've seen in other examples for this data set that it is. Now here's a big caution, a real common mistake that students make. This confidence interval does not mean that 95% of Honda Civic prices on the internet are between $12,900 and $14,100. Just take a look at the data set there in the histogram. You can see that there are used car prices down as low as $3,000 or $4,000 all the way up to well over $20,000. This confidence interval is saying we're 95% sure that the true average is between $12,900 and $14,100, not where the bulk of the data, the bulk of the car prices actually lie. We'll talk in another Learning Goal video about a theory-based approach which has some additional validity conditions but does allow us to find confidence intervals at different confidence levels.